25% would be a pretty good rate. That was 20,000 he was preaching to. Jesus preached to the multitudes. The truth attracts people. And it attracts people in a metropolitan area. It attracts a lot of people. Okay? So if you can't handle it, a lot of people can't handle it. They got to know everybody, and that's okay. Because I'm not going to talk down about your small church either. But don't let people talk down about my mega church. It's awesome. And my pastor is awesome. He is my pastor because of this message, these things that I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. He wrote a book called The Power of Your Words. And I've been drastically impacted by several authors that God used, starting with Experiencing God, Henry Blackaby and Claude King. That was my initiation into God Really Speaks. And you can hear him. I mean, that did so much for my life to get into that book. And then along came Eldridge with Wild at Heart, and it changed things for me. I'm a different person. It changed my relationship with my wife, my sons, my 3 sons, and our family tree is now changed. My 3 sons at their age are much better fathers. They're much better men than I was at their age, and that's my goal for each of them. And so as we get into this with regard to the power of your words, and that's the name of Pastor Robert's book, and I encourage you. Usually I travel with some of them, but I don't even know that I have any in it or not, because I do believe in it so much. But there's really 2 scriptures that are foundational in this, and the first one is death and life are in the power of the tongue. Now notice it says death and life. It doesn't say some words are meaningless, some words you're kidding, and some words aren't important. It says words have the power of life and death. So when we say something, is it life-giving or is it death-giving? And so at this point, I'd like to encourage myself, because I can be very guilty of this as well, to speak sarcastically. And as men, we kind of mouth at each other and rag on each other a little bit. Good-heartedly is okay, but there's a line, okay? There's a line where it goes past where you're trying to maybe make a message, or you really don't appreciate or approve of something, and so you kind of make a joke, or you think you're just kidding, or it's just sarcastic. I'm not saying that we don't ever do that, but I think it's one of those things we need to be careful of. Sarcasm has never worked well with my wife. I just don't do it anymore. She takes it poorly, to say at least. She, even if my heart really is light and kidding, it's just something about it. And I think it has to do with Scripture of what we're to do as men is to give ourselves up for our wives as Christ, to die, to be willing to die for our wives. And that continues on, that she is lifted up by the washing of her through your words. And so I think words are important. If you understand the love language of your wife or of the women in your life, because I talk a lot about my wife, and then just the single guys that gives the devil a chance to tune you out. You still have women in your life, even if you're single. You have a server at a restaurant. And so it's you understand the heart of a woman is the heart of a woman. It doesn't have to be your wife when I'm talking about the heart of a woman, but the most predominant love language of women is words. Now, if you know the love languages, there's 5 of them. The predominant love language of men is touch. Although there's, it varies, but I think that's what it is. Definitely, my wife's love language is words, and that I speak over her and speak to her, and so that's important. But I just exhort you to be cautious on sarcasm and sharp remarks to other. But it doesn't mean we can't kid each other. I think we can, but we need to be careful. We need to be careful and a little cautious on that. Okay. And I want to preface too, as the power of your words, the death and life are in the power of the tongue. I want to expand that a little bit, because what are your thoughts? Pretty much words to yourself, right? Self-talk. When you think you lousy loser, the places that we go, that the enemy comes down us when we screw up, and we start talking to ourselves basically through a thought. So I'm going to include thoughts in all of these things too. That your thoughts have the power of life and death, because they're really just words to yourself. And again, we're not going to go deeply into this. There's a whole book. Pastor Robert has a series. He had an 8-week series where he preached it. So it's, we can't do it in 20 minutes here. But I want to get you thinking about some things, and that's the whole idea. So as we speak, understand that we either speak life or we speak death. We speak blessings or we speak curses. If that's more obvious to you than life and death? You either bless people with your words or you curse people with your words, with what's being said. Okay, and curses are a big part. In Warren, what he brought up, that he was cursed. Words spoken over you, and see, that's another healing issue. As you go back into your past, and we talk about woundedness and healing, bind up the brokenhearted that I talked about yesterday. Curses, the words that have been spoken over you are very important, because I no longer ask guys that are incarcerated, how many men in this room, I used to ask it all the time, how many of you were told that you were going to wind up in prison? And what do you think the percentage is? It's almost 100. At some point, somebody looked at them, dad, mom, grandpa, somebody said, you're going to wind up in jail if you don't change the way you are. See, that's a spoken curse over them that they live with, that they've lived with, and it becomes self-fulfilling prophecies. See, my biggest error in this, before I understood that, I just thought I was good at discernment. I was good at predicting what was going to happen, or how somebody was going to respond, or what was going to happen when this happened. This was going to cause this. And what I've learned to realize is that I was actually speaking and causing some of that result. Okay? And this was incredibly revelation and revolutionary to me to understand this stuff, that I was actually causing some of the results, not just that I just thought I was good at figuring things out, what was going to happen, and really my own attitude, my own thoughts, my own words into that situation were causing them to happen. When you go into a discussion with your wife and say, oh man, she's probably going to blow right through the roof, and then there's going to be a 3-day war and all this. Now, what do you think's going to happen now when you go into that discussion? Or go into your boss. Oh man, he's going to blow up over this deal, and I'm going to lose my job, or get demoted, or whatever. What do you think? You just drastically reduced your odds for a positive outlook, a positive outcome in any particular situation if you go into those kind of words and those kind of things. About people, I've often gone by the kind of the mantra of unsolicited advice is very seldom well received, because it drives me crazy to walk by people and hear a conversation, and I want to say, quit saying that about yourself. I went to the hospital recently, and there's 2 guys standing there talking, and I'm just walking by, and one of them says, I'm a type 2 diabetic. God dang, it took every ounce of discipline that I had not to just stop it. What? That's not who you are. It may be something that's invaded your body, but it's not your identity. Now, what do you think his odds of getting healed are? When he's walking around saying, I am a type 2 diabetic. I am just an angry person. What do you, if that's your identity, if you're saying that about yourself, you're thinking that about yourself, what do you think your odds are to change? That's just my personality. That's another one that drives me crazy. Because poser really is our personality, kind of. It's all this facade that we've created to make people like us and not reject us. Okay? So understand that what you say and what you think and what people have said over you, don't allow people. Because I do this one. If somebody speaks a curse over me, I said, don't say that. That arthritis, you're probably going to have to get that knee replaced. Don't you tell me that. Okay? That could possibly be true down the road, but if you think that way and I think that way, then you're pretty much done deal at some point, okay? So just guard your heart, guard your words, okay? And guard your heart, that's my next scripture. Go to this the wrong way. Oh yeah, this one I was talking about a minute ago when we were talking about masculinity. Jesus was in conversation with the Pharisees and what this comes about, and it really had nothing to do. I included this. I started to just put the second part because that's really the subject matter of what I'm talking about. But I thought, well, that's a good one to let know that Jesus wasn't just Mr. Rogers all the time. You offspring of vipers, so sometimes some translations it says you vicious brood of vipers. Jesus is getting serious. He's the warrior now. He's not the poet. He's warrior here all of a sudden. How can you speak good things when you are evil? For out of the fullness of your heart the mouth speaks. Now I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. I have some trouble with my mouth. Okay, some of you figured that out already just from listening to me up here. So you've got to continue to work on heart issues. Work on heart issues. Because what does it say? All right? For out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. And as Pastor Robert would interject, you know what that means in the original language? For out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay? And it's what it says, and it's what it means. And so, this is what happens to us. So, almost everything that we deal with ultimately is a heart issue. And that's why the healing of your heart, bind up the brokenhearted, is so significant to me, for me to exercise and continue to remain in that process and encourage people around me to remain in that process, because it flows. Everything flows from it. Proverbs says, above all else, guard your heart, for from it is the wellspring of life, or everything flows from your heart. And so it's just critical that you understand this. And things can change. Things can change for the better because one of the things that I got in a conversation with Sue Murata just the other night about the same thing, because she's so much in agreement with this. We Christians are putting up with way too much because we're not really attacking things at the proper level. We're just saying, okay, I'm feeling a little bit bad, so I'm going to take medicine and go to bed, rather than pray after it, rather than to go after it from that, rather to speak life over it, rather than, oh no, I'm catching the flu. I'm probably going to be in bed for 2 weeks. Guess what? Most likely going to be in bed in 2 weeks. Now, you don't deny illness. That's what I'm saying. I'm not one of these people that we're sick because our faith is weak. Okay? We live in a fallen world. We get sick. Billy Graham dies of Parkinson's. I mean, there's my trump card. It wasn't because of his lack of faith that he got Parkinson's. Trust me. Okay? But sometimes it is an assault. It is something spiritual, and it needs to be spoken to. Okay? Creation of the world, God spoke, right? And then the land and sea were separate. He spoke. Light came. He spoke. Sun, moon, and stars. He spoke. Words are just critical. It's everywhere in the Bible. You can't, once you latch on to this, you can't read very far without something about your tongue and about words and about speaking. Okay? And so I want to get you to thinking about this, okay? And so the spoken word is very important in the warfare part of it. Ivan, you said the other day, when you feel like an attack, you say, "Get behind me, Satan." Okay? That needs to be said. It needs to be said out loud. Daily prayer that Mark gave you yesterday, it needs to be prayed out loud. Those words need to be spoken. Okay? And you know why that's effective, Ivan? Because it's Scripture. There's a Scripture, "Get behind me, Satan," in there. Okay? And what did Jesus do when he was assaulted in the wilderness? When Satan was tempting him If you are the Son of God, turn these rocks into bread. You must be hungry. And what Jesus respond? It is written. Devil, it is written. It is written. Well, cast yourself down and all this will be your devil. It is written. Okay? It's the written word that he speaks. And Jesus himself had to speak to the demonics. Okay? So your words are going to be significant in your spiritual warfare. The daily prayer needs to be prayed out loud. It really does. Because the demonic forces cannot read your mind. They're not like God. They're not omnipotent. They're not omniscient. They can't be everywhere. But there's millions and millions of them, so they can be lots of places. But you need to speak out loud, audibly, to them. Now, there again, that's what is Bible. What is it? Every time there's a conversation, every time there's an encounter between a human and an angel, there's always conversation. That's why we know this to be true. Angels spoke back and forth to people. And even Jesus himself had to speak to rebuke. The 72 had to speak to cast out demons. Okay? But do you see the relationship of that power to the scripture that I had up there a minute ago? That your words have life-giving power. They also have death-giving power. Words of life, words of curse. Okay? So in your healing process, Warren, that's really what God kind of shook me when you were talking about cursing your father, cursing over you. That those need to be broken. Okay, those curses need to be. And that leads me into, because I left Red hanging the other day. We watched Seabiscuit, you guys that just got here. We watched the scene from Seabiscuit where Red, the jockey, his father and family abandoned him, and the deep woundedness, the deep aloneness that brought about his anger and hostility was a result of that. And I left him hanging, not on purpose, but because God kind of brought it back to me, because it works out real well to fit it in here. Red needs to go pray. Devil, I am not alone. I am not abandoned. I pray against an orphan spirit. That's something I really wished I knew who to give credit to. That's a great term to be praying against, a spirit, an orphan spirit. Because don't we feel alone? I mean, even at 72 years old, you put me in something where I don't know what I'm doing, and I can be 7 years old again. Just when you ask me to do something that I have not a clue what to do. I mean, I'm 7 years old again, okay? So Red needs to go back and renounce the lies that he has been believing about himself and speak against anything that is infringed on him. Any agreement that he made need to be broken with his words. Okay? With your words, you need to go back and audibly break those things. Okay? And again, as we renounce those lies, break those vows. See if there's a vow that comes to it. Remember, mine was, I will not be like that man. I will not be like my father. And so I kind of threw out the baby with the bathwater. I threw out the good part of him, just as the vow of the parts of him that were abusive that I didn't like. I threw out the whole thing, and it made me weak. Okay, so you're going to go back and renounce the vows. I am like my father. See, I had to do that. I do have his strength. I don't have it over the top, that his strength out of his woundedness, see. And Warren, I hope you've understood that. Now, I don't hate to pick on you. I just love you, man. I'm so glad you're here. But hopefully you've looked back at your father's history and realized that hurt people hurt people. I mean, we've all heard that phrase. And so, see, it made me so much easier for forgiveness of my father to realize he was just fathering me the way that he was fathered. And so, okay, but praise the living God, I've got a chance to break that chain between me and my sons. That's what I'm talking about. Family tree changes as I start to understand the healing, and the power of my words is so significant in these. So I will end up right kind of where I started. Be alert, be careful about kidding and sarcasm. I'm not saying it's not fun and it's okay. It is okay, but just be careful. There is a line there. Be aware. I kind of look at it like anger. We're warned in anger to sin not in our anger. The anger itself is not a sin. It just puts us in a place of vulnerability. It's very easy to sin when we're angry. Okay, but understand how powerful your words are, and also that your thoughts are just words to yourself. It's self-talk. You know, it's what your words are. And so I dare you to change some things, because you will see difference. You don't curse your bank account. You don't curse your family. You don't curse your stuff. You don't curse your car. You know, because what does the word damn mean? It's a biblical term, actually. Damnation is eternally damn it to hell. And so why would I say my damn truck is broken again? I just cursed it. No wonder it broke. Maybe it probably break more now, you know? So your words have power. Just I want to caution you, okay? I really am believing this. I've seen it change things. I've seen it change relationships. I've seen it change hearts. I've seen it change circumstances as you start think differently about those areas of your life that you're not happy with. Instead of just cursing them, let's start speaking life into them. And our children, we've got to speak life into our children, okay? And separate their identity from their behavior. See, that spoken word over a child is, we're wounded because of events and things that were spoken on us when we were 9 years old. If you go back into your process of healing, it seemed like so much of mine was 9 years old was a bad year for me, you know, for some reason, because a lot of my stuff goes right back to there. And things that the enemy says to me, the things that people say to you, well, you're just clumsy. We were talking about Mark's issue the other day, and he had to go back and say, hey, y'all quit saying that. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Just say, hey, don't say that about me, man, will you? That's really, I would appreciate if you not, you know, that's not who I am. That's not what I want spoken over me. And don't allow people to speak over you. Now, if your boss, you're going to get fired, you know, maybe you let him talk like that and just turn away and walk away and say, devil, I rebuke those words that just were spoken over me. Claim the cleansing power of Jesus into my life. And break that curse right then, because you've had a spoken curse over you that will affect you. They affect you. They always do. And so part of the healing process, yesterday I tried to get you thinking in that direction. It's not going to happen this weekend. I wished it was. And I wish it had for me. But all of this stuff is just a process. For you to discipline yourself on your words and your thought, it's just a process kind of thing. And something that can immediately and instantly change. How are you talking about your bank account? How are you talking about your house? How are you talking about your car, your truck, all your stuff, your possessions? How are you talking about it? And then perhaps some things need to change, especially with the women in your life. How are you talking to them? How do you talk to that waitress? How do you talk to that server who's serving you in the restaurant? How do you speak to her? Do you just reciting what you want? No, come on. Look up, see her. You know, speak over people. Speak words of life over people. That's what being an encourager is, speaking life. That we're all called to encourage each other. That's in Timothy, isn't it? Where we're all called to encourage each other and build each other up. And that's words of life that you speak over people, or a note or an email. Those are words. They're spoken to and over people. Okay? Tim, Mark, y'all want to jump in here?